Welcome in to another new AMP podcast. I'm your host, Ben Dubose, and I'm the news editor with the AMP publications team. In that capacity, with the Association for Materials Protection and Performance, better known as AMP for short, I create content for both Materials Performance Magazine, or MP, as well as for Coatings Pro Magazine. Today's episode is part of our Coatings Pro interview series. In today's sponsored show, we're talking with Russell Rodd, president of Abrasives Incorporated. Since 1990, Abrasives Incorporated has operated in the upper Midwest, or largely in the upper Midwest. We'll get into that momentarily, as a leading producer of silica and coal slag. Russell, if you could, tell us a bit more about the history of the company, as well as you yourself personally and your career as you've progressed through the industry.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben, for having me. My name is Russell Rodd, President and CEO of Abrasives Incorporated here since 2010. The company was formed back in 1990 as a sand plant, silica sand plant. In 2010, we created what's called an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan. And then after that, 2014, we bought a distributor in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. Today, we move about 20,000 tons in that region, in that market. And as recently as 2022, we purchased our largest distributor down in Texas and New Mexico called Heller Phillips. Currently, they're running about close to 20,000 tons as well. We move that product down by rail car and then repackage down in that area to bring it out to market.
So what materials and technologies are in your wheelhouse today? What are the specialties for Abrasives Incorporated? Obviously, Abrasives comes with the brand name, but within that field, what do you guys specialize in?
Well, it's kind of interesting, going back into the company when it was originally founded. Abrasives kind of told you the story, exactly what our name was. But our signature product is called Black Magic Coal Slag. And really in this, it's been prevalent in the upper Midwest or throughout the country, really, for a number of years. It's probably been in use for 90 to close to 100 years, maybe. Anything from ships to oil and gas tanks, pipelines, things of that nature. But we do have 45 different distributors throughout the United States, regional in some cases. Some of them are by rail car. And we also have, you can check us out on our website, abrasivesinc.com, for a lot of demos. We've demoed our product versus other products, whether it's sand to coal slag to copper slag, you name it. You can check it out on our website. There's some YouTube videos there.
How much has the market changed since 2010? You mentioned that's when you started in this capacity with Abrasives Incorporated. In terms of the demand for Black Magic, the types of projects that it can be used on, what's happened in the last 10 to 15 years to sort of transform that market?
Well, there's been a lot of power plant shutdowns, right? So the availability of coal slag has had an effect here in the United States and across the world, really, for that matter. But in North Dakota, we still have a number of power plants that are of the old technology, but are the newer plants of that old technology. So we anticipate that these plants are going to be open for probably another 30 to 40 years. They're talking into the 2050 mark. And today's demand for power is really surpassing what we can provide in power. So you're going to see that extended life happen on these in these power plants, and in today's administration, I think is going to be helpful for that. With regulation down the road.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So regulations coming down the pike, environmental trends, how do your products play into that in terms of where the market is going in the next few years? How is that going to play into demand for your products?
I think it's going to go very well with this current or with the newly elected administration. They're looking for every new regulation, they want to pull back 10 regulations, right? So I think in the coal industry, the oil and gas industry, both of these are going to have an opportunity to kind of expand and no pun intended here, but blow off. It's gonna be an interesting ride over the next 8 years. We're seeing some of these pullbacks already just in what we have. Keep in mind though, coal slag and black magic and specifically, it's a beneficial reuse product, and there's a lot of leeway with that beneficial reuse. So we can get into that a little bit later. Have some thoughts on that.
So I want to follow up. You mentioned in terms of the industries, the markets that you serve, coal, power
Mm.
plants, oil and gas. Obviously, abrasives are used as part of the surface preparation phase for a contractor that's performing work at one of those sites. What are the unique challenges in those environments that are different than, I don't know, let's say a concrete flooring job? What's different when you're trying to prepare a surface in one of those heavily industrial environments like coal, like oil and gas?
The biggest thing there is that it's a one-time use product. So compared to say a flooring job, you're going to have a peening action and get preparing that floor. So you may have a piece of equipment that comes through and actually peens and surface preps and then collects the dust and all the residue after that. In these big industrial, they're literally blasting and going, right? And so there's a lot of cases if it's in a populous area, it'd be draped and then the dust will be collected inside the canvas. Let's just say a water tower. And all that dust and material, paint will drop to the ground and they'll come by and vacuum it up or and then dispose of it properly. So that's a difference. I mean, in that case, you can't always get around everything by a piece of machine, but you can by lifts and somebody operating a hose.
So, looking at it from an installer perspective, obviously your products are only as good as the job the contractor does when they're actually using them on the job site. What are some of the pain points that they have? What are the challenges for them when they're trying to, prepare the surface in that type of environment? You talked about a little of this already, but specifically, what is the feedback that they give you as far as what their challenges are, and what do you all do as an abrasives manufacturer to try and mitigate that as best you can?
Number one is the size of product that we produce. We either make a really coarse, a medium, a fine, and maybe two different grades of fine, and then an extra fine. And so they will use a combination of pressure and the media and the size of that to get a desired profile. And obviously, we're talking that the end result is how do they hang the paint onto whether it's steel or concrete or whatever. So we have heard the customer. We screen in different ways. We screen for the abrasive blasting industry first, and so there are different profiles that they want to achieve, and they'll ask us, hey, if I want to get a 2.5 mil profile, what should I use? Well, then you got to kind of go back and ask, what type of machinery are you using? If you're only pushing 90 psi, maybe you have to go to a 2040. If you're pushing 110 psi, maybe you drop down to a 3060, a little bit finer yet, that will get you your desired profile. So the pinch point is they want to know what profile they can get with the product given the use of the machinery. And that's really starts getting into some technical sales.
Yeah, for sure. I want to follow up with something you said a couple of minutes ago about the administration change. How much of the market gets put on hold in a year like 2024, or I guess like 2020, when there's a little bit of uncertainty with regards to the policies that are going to be in place? Does that potentially lead to the next year of, I guess, the new administration, the new cycle being more beneficial to you just because there is no uncertainty? What changes now that the election is over with and now that there's, more certainty in the marketplace?
I think that's just it is, people spend differently. They know how to spend for the next few years, right? So certain projects will now start to take off in different ways. Back to the regulation side, I don't think we really saw too much of a drop off here in North Dakota, but we've had a state that backs us, that backs the coal industry and the beneficial reuse. However, in other parts of the country, you're seeing a lot of imports being brought in. The copper slag is being brought in. There's nickel slag that's being brought in. Garnets are all basically imported into the United States. And a lot of these places, they're either being mined for a specific blast job or there are other countries' waste streams. And if you think about it, all these imports, we're taking in waste streams from other countries and
Yep.
maybe private industries, and then they're using it in blast jobs. And where do they end up? They end up in our local municipality landfills. The difference between that and say a Black Magic coal slag is we are 100% domestically made from the ground through the process and then beneficial reuse. We are, it's all 100% domestic product. So if we're going to put it into one of our landfills, why don't we keep our own product in the United States?
Well, and to go back a couple of years to the supply chain crisis, I'm sure that sort of boosted demand for domestic suppliers as well, right? In that if there's a problem, if there's something that's needed on short notice, you're able to step in a way that someone internationally might not be able to.
And we're hearing that even now, as the new administration comes in, this might have a good effect for us just as well as we're hearing that shipping costs are going to go up.
Mhm.
And then we're also hearing that, some of these countries are going to have tariffs put on them.
Yeah.
They're not in an
I was
open
going to ask
trade
about that.
United
Yeah.
States. So there's some dynamics that are going to be changing that it'll be a different conversation next year at this time than what we're having right now. And we have to let that play out and see how that's going to go.
Is there a significant difference between, your markets in the upper Midwest, which are more traditional, and now you mentioned the West Texas distributor that you have set up. Is it similar in terms of the market dynamics? Is it different? What changes have you seen now that you're operating in multiple areas of the country?
Yeah, I think we're seeing that when we did that purchase down in West Texas, we knew that there was kind of a hole, and that was after COVID. And excuse me, we ended up realizing that we couldn't leave that hole there. That's down in the Permian Basin, so all oil and gas there. And now that we've got an administration, there's a lot of push on oil and gas to become independent again. So we anticipate that's going to go, that's going to set on fire, and boom. In the upper Midwest, we have the Bakken here in North Dakota, and then you also have in Wyoming. You have some of the formations there for gas. In Colorado, we've seen a lot in Utah. We're also shipping a lot of our product out to Seattle for ship base. We're also down in New Orleans right now doing some ship base stuff. You have a lot of people that are realizing that coal slag is still a good product, even though there was an association or a stigma.
What's the first question that you get, or among the first questions that you get when someone's using coal slag when they've used something different in the past?
Do you have supply? And yeah, we do. We sit here. We have three power plants that we can draw from, and so there's a good amount of supply here. We have some very very good supply to bring out to the market. Our plant is up and running daily, sometimes 16, 18 hours a day to produce products. And the other thing is that you also get into what's roofing granules on shingles, and there's a lot of there's been a lot of bad weather, and unfortunately, a lot of these shingles and roofs and stuff like that have to be replaced. That roofing market is also a heavy, I guess, industry that we would work with.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about some of those trends when it comes to, environmentalism, climate change. The new administration is obviously in one direction. 4 8 years from now, it may be a different direction. How do you all stay prepared so that you sort of balance all of these factors so that, regardless of the landscape in a given year or, the trends at a specific moment in time, that, you're covered on all of your bases? How do you sort of, navigate or walk the fine line of, taking advantage of the opportunities of this new administration while also, being ready for other things that may be in a different direction?
I think it's being involved in all these industries, whether you go to the AMP conference and show, or you go to a concrete, like you have World of Concrete, you'll have some different things like that. you've got to listen to what those end users are saying and doing and prepping for. Just recently, we were down in New Orleans for the International Boat Show. So there's a lot of these industries that you have to pay attention to that will help lead you to how do you, service them in the end. And so, yeah, that's we've been staying very active with that. Actually, adding on, we've simplified a lot of our sales. We've done some inside sales work. So there's a lot of different moving parts to stay on top of that, but those are some of the examples.
Mm. When we look a little further out, 5, 10, even 20 years, what are some of the new technologies that are out there, be it in terms of, you know, abrasive materials themselves or the equipment that can be used to apply them? What's changing with the market over the next decade or two that's gonna, alter the landscape for a producer such as yourself?
Yeah, I think you're seeing, more remote control type of pieces of equipment, say have magnets, and then they go up and down different tanks. They do some recycling. I think that's kind of a move right now. But there's still that bread and butter of some abrasive blasting that's going on out there that you can't do mechanically or by robots. So I think as you look out, you're going to see some of these larger projects being done more with some of these remote control and type of equipment. If you want to take a step back, just say 5 years, 10 years, there was a lot of vapor blasting, and you're kind of seeing a lot of that. So it's kind of more of a fad, or it kind of phased in, phased out. We're not seeing a whole lot of vapor blasting today as we have been in the past. So it's really critical to stay within the times. In 5, 10, 20 years, sometimes it's too far to reach out. It's more like what's in 2 years and 4 years and 5 years, and then move with the market in that direction.
I want to follow up because you brought up robotics. Obviously, that's on the forefront of a lot of people's minds these days when it comes to surface prep. We know the workforce development crisis and what's expected to be coming down the pike in terms of, contractors not being able to fill out their crews to the extent that they have in the past. What are the potential implications of, increased use of robotics for surface prep for a manufacturer such as you guys?
Well, I think it's really good for the overall industry because labor is a big issue.
Right.
uh, today's world, and to get a guy who's using joysticks and stuff like that and climbing up and down, and as opposed to, and it adds some safety. So you're going to get into, but those are just some of the large pieces. Let's just say oil tanks, water tanks, maybe ships, and but there's things like under bridges and small pipe and smaller projects that robotics are not going to be able to fit into.
Mhm.
And then how about the material side? What's available in the material side? If you talk to a lot of this, say, steel grit and steel shot, they have some pretty good lead times, and some of their sources are they still got to take that steel and grind it up and so on and so forth. It's a long process, and yeah, there's how long is that gonna how long the lead time is gonna be there?
Mhm. So if you go to the Abrasives Incorporated website, abrasivesinc.com,
Yeah.
obviously the coal slag black magic is your bread and butter, but it's not just the abrasive blast media. In terms of products that people can get from you all, you've also got blast hose and fittings, nozzles, respirators, valves, all sorts of things. Why is it important for you all to go beyond just the blast media and to have a more all-encompassing line? Just speak to, the importance of at least having that option available and what that means for the diversity of you all as a supplier.
It's a great question because we actually view ourselves as what's called a one-stop shop. We're very technical sales orientated. And in order to understand the full problem or pinch points or issues that they have, you gotta understand the whole process. And so then we started partnering with some of our suppliers like Clemco and RPB, GBS, and started bringing solutions to customers. Well, and by the way, we go there originally trying to sell Black Magic, but they were asking, how much do you know about this and how much do you know about that? And before you know it, we morphed into being a one-stop shop and carrying supplies, and it just took off. It became probably close to 35-40% of our sales. And so we've really trained our salespeople to be more on they're out there doing face-to-face visits on these job sites, and they'll tell you exactly what their pinch point is or what their pain point is at that moment. And, we can move from there. And if not every job site is got something different.
And I'm guessing it's a situation for a lot of your clients where they prefer it if they have an issue that they don't have to look up, you know, 3 or 4 different suppliers to figure out who they need to call. If they get multiple things from a provider such as you guys, then in the event that they need more, in the event that there's any issues, because it's a one-stop shop, they know who the point of contact is, right?
Correct. Right. And
Okay.
our sales team, it does a great job of making them aware that we have everything. And then you'll see on our website too, we have what's called a buyer's guide. It's a full schematic breakdown, all the parts pieces. We could have a guy who go on our website and say, "Hey, I'm on page 38 and I need part 18." And it's as simple as that. Or when one of our salesmen visits them, we'll ask them what they're trying to accomplish and how we get them there.
Yep. One of the other items on the front page of your website, because I'm sure this is important, is the note that Abrasives Inc. is located on the BNSF rail and can thus provide service to all areas of North America, United States, Canada, and Mexico. How important is that you all have a secure, not just amount of supply, but a plan to actually distribute the supply in light of what we've seen with the supply chain the last couple of years? We talked about that earlier in the pod, but in terms of that specific rail relationship, how important do you find that is when you're talking to customers or potential customers?
Oh, it opens up doors where you wouldn't normally think you could open up doors. Yeah, it's we control it. We know that we can get X amount of tons out per month or per year, and so then we have our own. We release our own rail cars, so we control it from A to Z, and we can get it down into far reaches of Texas to Seattle. We're going out east now, and anywhere in between. So it's critical to be on our own siding, have our own cars, control where we need to go.
All right. The last question I've got for you, if someone listening to this podcast is thinking about taking on a job somewhere and they're on the fence about what supplier to use or perhaps what type of abrasives, why are you all the right choice, both in terms of the overall offerings that you have and then technically speaking to, Black Magic, Coal Slag, which I know is your flagship product. What makes that the right choice for a client and what makes you all overall as a company and the diversity of the things you offer the right choice, be it for Black Magic or beyond?
Yeah, good question. So as being a one-stop shop in technical sales, I think it's the competency of our sales staff in each one of our locations where we can help customer locally and we can help a customer abroad. If you go onto the website, you'll see where some of our different distributors are at, and we've already done some of the testing. And you can choose for yourself whether or not you want to pick Black Magic or another product. We've even tested some of the sands. We've tested garnet. We've tested glass. You could see on by watching a couple of those videos what those times come out to be. We did the pre-work for people so that they have some choices. We hope that they're going to choose us and our technical staff. We have locations throughout the United States that can help get it to them pretty quickly. And we have in partner with our other distributors, and we may not get the parts on that, but if they're using Black Magic Coal Slag, they're at least getting to one of our distributors. So that's what makes it different for us is that we can talk the talk, walk the walk for people, and they can break down, use our buyer's guide, and hey, hopefully we've led them to the right solution for them. And you can reach us again, our website, abrasivesinc.com. You can check out some of those videos that are on there, and you can find me on LinkedIn anytime.
Good stuff. Russell, before we let you go, for listeners who might want to learn more, what's the best way for them to do that? I'm guessing it's the website, but what plugs do you all want to throw as far as resources you have available that our audience can learn from?
Sure. So we have an 800 number. You can call us at 800 584 7524. You can reach me at on email. And so it's my first initial, last name, RRAAD at abrasivesinc.com. Or we have a sales at abrasivesinc.com. Again, that's going to get you to our general inside sales team. And they answer quickly. They answer within probably about half an hour to an hour.
And then the website is abrasivesinc.com, and it looks like you guys have Facebook and YouTube pages too. All right. Good stuff there from Russell Rod of Abrasives Incorporated. Again, if you want more resources from them, you can get that at abrasivesinc.com. And with that, we'll bring this sponsored episode to a close. On behalf of AMP, I'm Ben Dubose, and if you want more resources from us or at Coatings Pro Magazine, just visit amp.org or coatingspromag.com. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another new episode.